Coming up, the New Jersey Devils bounce back in a game that seemed all but lost. We break down the late 30 seconds that clinched the victory and then go high level from everything on the performance on the ice to the man behind the bench. We dive in on it all coming up next. Yes, sir. It's DPL, the Devil's Puck Luck podcast, where you know that we are your hosts. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. Over there, Danny McDonough. And it was the game that could have been, and in many ways still seems like, the lightning rod for the fan base, the great debate around Lindy Ruff, around Vitek. We're going to get to all of that. But thankfully, before that happens, we also get to talk about a comeback victory against the Islanders, a game that really, for much of it, Danny, did not feel like the Devils were going to pull out.
Yeah, the first period weren't bad. I thought the play was very even. The first period, second period looked pretty bad when it comes from on a whole level defensively. Third period was what the Devils have been doing. Right, it's you overcome that 4-2 deficit to win the game 5-4. The offense, we have the ability to come back on any team, and you saw that. So I'm going to mark this one down. 20 games into the year, this one is an important one. Being 9-10-1 is a big difference than being 10-9-1.
Sure.
And only 2 points away from the Flyers, who we play Thursday night. So, I mean, this is a big, big win, especially in regulation against a Metro Division rival.
Devils outshot the Islanders. They won the faceoffs 58.5%, as typically what they do. Power play, as you mentioned, some opportunities here. One of the few times this season where the Devils were on the power play 4 times and only converted 1 opportunity in there, even in terms of penalties taken, even in terms of the takeaways, 3-5 in advantage of the Devils. Here's the big one: 22 block shots for the Islanders. I think as we look back sometimes, we'll find this theme where it's like, well, yeah, if not for the fact, and by contrast with the way sometimes the Devils defense plays, we look back and say, yep, a lot of block shots, a lot of opportunities that never quite got through. Go through the final sequence, though, 30 seconds in this game, 4-on-4 madness, and it ends up being maybe a somewhat surprising player that steps up for the Devils.
Yeah, listen, the third line was absolutely buzzing all night. The Holtz line with McLeod and Lazar. And I love the fact that Lindy Ruff put them out there with 30 seconds left, offensive zone, getting in there. McLeod doing what McLeod does: puck possession, getting behind the opposition's net. Finds Lazar right there, Lazar, and buries it with 21 seconds left. So, I love to see that it paid off for them. They were buzzing all night. And the fact, again, that we scored that late, to I think after Jack Hughes scored that third goal, by the way, too, I think we took all the momentum out of the Islanders. So, it's unbelievable to see. You root for Lazar hard because Lazar is a very, very tough player to play against, especially, and he's giving you 110% every single shift. So, I was really happy for Lazar.
110.
110.
Wow.
To me, Lazar is the guy on the ice. Him and Palat, the last couple games, that have just been skating exceptionally well, and Holtz too. Exceptionally well, and digging for every puck and digging for every board battle. And those are the guys that you want to see be able to put some points up. And you saw it with McLeod too. So hats off to that third line. Big performance.
Who are your top 3 110% players on this Devils roster right now?
In regards to shift by shift, or in regards to like how
just who's given 110%? It's just it's that extra 10%. I want your top 3. I would put maybe McLeod in the mix there. I think along with Lazar, as you mentioned, and
Palat,
give me a third guy.
Palat as of recently, Palat the last 3, 4, 5 games, I think that he's just been really immaculate on the boards. He's been one of the best Devils on the boards. But McLeod 100%. McLeod, the faceoffs, he just is always going to come out flying. Same with Lazar. And
I would say something like Palat 110% for the last 3 or 4 games, then maybe like 68% for the start of the season, right? Like, so it's nice. It's nice to kind of move these percentages around. Now, I'm being tongue in cheek just around needing these effort guys, and when they put it together, that's how they get rewarded. And of course, as we've talked about, I love that Alexander Holtz, he's been shuffled around a little bit at the start of the year. He keeps trying to find a new home for himself, and he's been a productive player for this team. So I like that he's out there on the ice for that moment also. Now let's get to the crux of it all. You mentioned there, listen, 10-9-1. You're above 500. You've had a lot of injuries. We got another one now coming in here with the Dougster, Dougie Hamilton. But between the pipes, The
Yeah.
reason why we might make the case that this game should not have been as close as it was, that the Devils should have been able to bury the Islanders who have struggled this season, is because Vitek simply has not been even to use percentages, he hasn't been 70% of the goaltender that he was a year ago. Things that you and I talked about a lot during the playoffs, situational awareness, getting from pipe to pipe with urgency, those things seem to have regressed here. And it's really unfortunate because he's coming off of some career best marks a year ago. And it just looks like this is flat out not a guy that can be a true number one.
He's the quintessential guy that overachieved last year. I think if you're talking about the Devils individually as players, I
Mm,
think that he overachieved the most. And this year the regression is egregious. It's so obvious. And the biggest thing to me, I think a lot of it is mental for him too. The kind of person he is. He seems like a fun guy. He kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. You root for him, obviously, but he just looks very slow when it comes to his positioning.
yeah.
That first power play goal by the Islanders, you got to get over there, crease to crease, post to post, and make that save. He was there in plenty of time. He just didn't get set. His positioning was bad. So you got to make that save. 9 times out of 10, and he's just not making those saves. But we're 20 games in. You and I have talked about at the beginning of the year. The biggest question mark was goaltending, right? And we're
Yeah.
here 20 games in, and it's a problem. Goaltending is a problem. And the fact that Vitek has struggled the way he has, you and I are on the same page with this. Sometimes we have differing opinions when it comes to personnel and individual lines and pairings on defense. It's time for Akira. Like, what are we doing now? Vitek has had his shot. He is extremely underwhelming. He's in the bottom 3 in the league of starters, that are taking the majority of the games for their teams. It's time for Akira. Give him the starting role, give him that momentum to get a good couple games under his belt. He's shown you in his last few appearances he can do it. He has had some bad moments, obviously, this year as well, but the sample size is not nearly enough to really say that he's in the same boat as Vitek.
Yeah, 15 games played now for Vitek, 46 goals against, and that's a minus 6.6 on goals saved above expected. He is fourth worst in the league right now when it comes to that category. And the 15 games for me, as you and I talked about, this is really was predicated for me personally, going back to the playoff series last year and how Akira performed. He's obviously a young goaltender. He's a guy that you think can take that next step. We talked about this, and we were pretty darn close on in agreement of I would have given the nod to start the year to Akira. That was me personally. I think you said at least having that split that made a lot more sense. When you talk about 20 games into this season and Vitek has started 15, that's not enough. At a minimum, we said this ratio should be 60-40 split if you want to put it in favor of Vitek early in the year. The fact that Akira hasn't started 7 out of the first 20 games, maybe even 8, I could make the case for. That's my biggest frustration because you've seen him, as you said, he struggled in the shootout when he had that opportunity. He's had some bad games of his own. Like, let's not frame this in a way where it's like, Akira's been such a stalwart and he's being shunned from the opportunity. But the thing they haven't given him is the opportunity for consistency. You have time and time again given back to back, not back to back on the schedule, but game after game to Vitek, and you have not afforded Akira to find that rhythm. As a young goaltender and someone that has shown a lot of that natural instincts that we loved a year ago, I would like to see him get 2-3 games in a row here and see what that looks like. And by the way, you may end up resetting value for Vitek by having him be the guy that comes in for a spot start and maybe puts it together for 60 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if we're going to only pay him 25%,
Episode over.
yeah, if you're only going to play him 25% of the time, why didn't you start him as the starter in Utica to get more work if you knew that he was going to be a
You know
quintessential
what?
backup?
Yeah, drill down on that point because we talked about this when it came to young players, and I think with Nemec, that was a really big talking point for you and me. And it was like, listen, what are we going to do? Keep him up, and you, I think, accurately displayed that. It's about getting the work, getting the reps, needing that opportunity. And Ruff illustrated that point down the back end of the preseason. Likewise for Akira. Who gives a crap? Keep Blackwood here. What's the difference? If you're only going to start him once every fifth game, why bother having him here, especially from a development standpoint? He's a young goaltender. We thought he would develop at the NHL level, and we're not seeing that opportunity.
And it goes back to the same thing with Nemec. It's organizationally, what do the Devils want to do to grow these young kids, right?
Sure.
It's
And
why
serving two
not have Nico
agendas,
Daws up?
competing now and
Yeah.
building the future, right?
Why not have Nico Daws up? Why not have Keith Kincaid if you're going to do that as the backup to Vitek if he was going to be your true number one starter to give Akira that work, that much needed full season? And now it doesn't matter now, right? Because Vitek has just crapped the bed. He really has crapped
Right,
the bed, and
right.
it's
Solve this. You solved the problem all on its own.
yeah,
The
and we
performance is
hope
now dictated. Yeah.
and yeah, we sit here and hope that Akira's starting against the Flyers Thursday night. So you just hope, and my worry is that if Vitek is back in net, there's some kind of issue going on behind closed doors with why he's starting over Akira when clearly Vitek has struggled badly. And I understand that defense is not perfect. Yes, we're a little below average when it comes to our defense. I want to say a little below. We are below average when it comes to our defense. But this is like the problem is that great NHL teams are going to turn the puck over. Period. They're going to turn the puck over. You need to have your goalie make some saves. Vitek has not made the saves. He has to be able to make an occasional save to be like, thankfully we got Vitek there. He has not done that at all.
Well, and so here's the last thing that I'll say on this before we turn our attention over to Lindy Ruff, and this has been a great debatable among the Devils fan base. That's, I think, for me, it's not that I don't care. The turnovers, you want your goaltender to stand on his head on occasion. But that was never the baseline that I set for Vitek. My baseline was make the expected saves, right? 5-on-5 hockey, playing reasonable defense. We know that's been a struggle at times here. Make the expected saves. That's where I'm most disappointed. Again, because if you told me that he was playing good hockey between the pipes and was getting absolutely murdered on odd man rushes and on sloppy turnovers, I'd say, okay, I can give him a marginal pass based on expectation. I never thought that Vitek was a top 5 goaltender in the league, right? So serve the role that is meant for you. He
Yeah.
has not served the role, right? You need to be consistent. You need to be reliable, as does the defense, as does the offense. Everybody. It's a team-wide theme here. And that's what has been the most disappointing is that sometimes, we talked about this a few games ago, there were moments when he's trying to freeze the puck and he doesn't know, and it gets lost in the fold sometimes. But it was like half a dozen times in a single game. He didn't know if it was underneath his elbow, in between his legs, stuck inside the fold of his belly. And to your point, it's just like, it does not seem like you are tracking, reacting, and controlling the tempo in between the pipes the way this team needs to with the expectations that it has. We'll get back into this here if Danny has a follow-up on that, and then turn our attention over to Lindy Ruff, because this is the other thing that is now happening here, which quite frankly, you don't hear me get too fired up that often. I'm usually calming Danny down. I have no clue what some segment of the Devils fan base is talking about right now. We'll get into that here in just 1 second. First, though, got to remind you about our friends over at DraftKings. That's because the NFL season is going strong, not for the Jets, not for the Giants, but other teams, and overall the league is going strong. And DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers with an offer that's even stronger. Bet just $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And you know that DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every single game day throughout the end of November, and then they'll dial it right back up into December. Get it on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code
THPN.
New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's promo code
THPN.
Oh, yes, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.100gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hills Casino Resort. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in our friends to the north, Ontario, Canada. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. And now the other problem, Danny. Vitek hasn't been great. We all get that. We want to see Akira. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like there's a portion of the Devils fan base that believes Lindy Ruff is in fact the emblem that they wear and we see symbolically around the arena. He is the devil incarnate for a certain percentage of this fan base that I cannot wrap my head around it. We talk about it all the time. I don't love the shuffling. I didn't love the way they handled Alexander Holtz this preseason and training camp and into the regular year. Don't get me wrong. I am not here to tell you that Lindy Ruff is perfect. But the world where you come out of last season and what that team accomplished with him at the helm, and then you come into this year with all the same expectations and a handful of key injuries to Jack, to Nico. I don't know what people are looking at when they think that Lindy Ruff is the bane of the Devils' existence. The players have not performed to expectation. They got to get better, and he needs to make tweaks and changes. But this is not, I mean, put the laundry list up of things that are the problems with the New Jersey Devils right now. Lindy Ruff does not make the list for me.
So give me a second here, right? Jack, Nico, Timo, Paula, Dougie Hamilton, Noshek, Miller. Some of the injuries we've had. Lazar was banged
Sure.
up a little bit. It's really difficult when you have all these injuries too to put together a complete four-line system offensively with four lines that are rolling to get that cohesiveness. It's really difficult to put it all on the coach when you have this many injuries. But more so, I think I can flip this around. I think Holtz has developed extremely well this year, and I put a lot of that on Lindy Ruff and the coaching staff. I think that he is extremely smart with how he utilized Brendan Smith in the last 3 games and putting him on
Yes.
the wing with the injuries. He knew that Colin Miller was stepping in, was playing better defense than him on the last pairing, and he put him with Luke Hughes, and it worked out well. He also has bench players, no matter their stats, no matter the amount of money they're making a year. He's benched them. Timo, Marino. He benched Colin Miller in that second period after giving up that breakaway with the miscommunication on that second goal from the Islanders. I can go on. The list can go on. I think that it's unfair with what's happening right now with the Devils to say this is Lindy Ruff and his system. This is the same system we had last year. Siegenthaler, Hamilton, Marino for the first 15 games. Luke Hughes in his first year, he's a rookie. Kevin Ball in his first complete season, and a seventh D-man in Brendan Smith as your defense. They're underperforming. That's really what it is. They have underperformed, and they've taken step backs personally, individually in their game. This system has not changed. And again, your defense is going to look even worse when your goaltending can't make a save. So everything is compounded here. And I think that if you brought up a great point, if you're going to blame Ruff that he's the issue, then you have to put it on Fitz too. Why aren't you putting it on Fitz as well that he didn't address the goaltending and the defense? So it's a lot of it's off base to me. I understand why the fan base is questioning Lindy Ruff. I get it. I understand where they're reacting to situations that are happening in front of them, obviously, and seeing it from a very tight, closed window here. But if you take a step back and look what we did last year to this year, nothing has changed systematically. So I think everybody needs to calm down a little bit when it comes to Lindy Ruff. I think if the Devils miss the playoffs and we're healthy at the end of the year and we miss the playoffs, then we
Of
can have
course.
the conversation about Lindy Ruff and the future as him as the head coach of the Devils.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I want to get to the Fitz angle of this too. And by the way, I don't need to heap a ton of responsibility on him, but the offseason had several key decisions that needed to be made. This is a team that chose to actively go more offensively minded,
Mhm.
bringing back players, bringing in players like Toffoli, and chose to look at the defensive pairings and say, for the most part, addition of Miller, for the most part, we're going to stand pat. And we're going to believe that we can get there with the players that we have in front of them. I can sit here and tell you that right now, there's only 2 points separating the Devils with the Flyers, who are up there in third position. The Flyers have played 2 more games than the Devils have as well, and they're going to see them coming up on Thursday night. Likewise for Washington, they've only played 18 games. They have 2 games in hand on the Devils. It's all good. It's all relative here early on. It's a quarter of the way through the season, and Danny and I think, fairly say this is when you do start this real heavy evaluation, because from here until the trade deadline, it's going to be about, are guys getting into form? Are we seeing the defense start to sort it out a little bit here? The fact that Colin Miller was injured to start the year and couldn't play might be one of the biggest factors in stabilizing those defensive pairings. Lindy Ruff, for all we know, but has said, I don't want Brendan Smith to be the sixth defenseman. I want him to be the seventh. I want him to be this little bit of a versatile weapon we can use if called upon. Instead, he has to. So he puts him with Luke Hughes, and that looks pretty bad for the most part. And you're waiting for these things to come into focus. On Fitz here, real quick. It's there, man. I'll tie it into both of them. What can Lindy Ruff do for Vitek?
Can't
What
do
is he
it.
supposed to do? Go out and hold the stick for him and make the save, right? There's nothing you can do specifically to that end. There's not a lot of coaching that goes on with who's playing between the pipes. At the Fitz level, you got to make a decision here. And in the offseason, you seemingly did. We like the development of Akira, and we believe that Vitek can be our starting goaltender. That has not panned out. So whether it was sacrificing Akira to go get a top guy because maybe Vitek doesn't have the trade cachet that we internally think he could have had, or whatever it looked like, you had a lot of moves to make, a lot of money got spent, and none of it was on the goaltending. So if you want to create that list, at least at a minimum, we're now looking at that and saying, I don't think we're going to, turn around here in another 10, 15 games and say, oh, there's the Akira that, the Vitek that we knew.
Mhm.
This is a problem. And it's the problem that we thought they had in the playoffs ultimately, and the problem that we knew we are going to have coming into the season.
Look, I think you and I can agree that Fitz did a phenomenal job when it came to his offseason and how he
100%.
handled contracts.
Yep.
It's now we're 20 games in now and we're seeing the holes. It's a lot of it was trial and error. I think the goaltending was a trial and error thing where we said, listen, we're going to go with these guys. They deserve it because Vitek was awesome last year. Akira was excellent in the playoffs. And
Mhm.
I think you take the chance on it. And we see that it's not working out real well right now. Akira still has that shot to be that number one goaltender. He really does because he doesn't have a big sample size. And he's going into, hopefully, we see him start tomorrow, going into Philly tomorrow. It's a very winnable game. It's same thing with Friday against San Jose, another very winnable game. So I still think, and I'm very confident to say this, that I think that Fitz is going to make a move for a defender, a Tanev, a Zadorov. I think that he's going to make a move. I think that's definitely in the cards. And I think that his phone is always open, his ear is always open, and he's going to hear what he has to hear from specific teams with offers and just feeling around the league. He's going to be doing that. He's that kind of GM. My big issue here, my massive issue is this team is so young, and I understand that you're seeing everything 20 games into this season. This team defensively is so young. In our pipeline, we have really, really good defenders that are going to be on the NHL level in the years to come. Yeah, we overachieved last year, but there's no need to panic with what we have for our future. That's why I think that Fitz did a great job. But I still think that if you're going to put blame on Ruff, then you have to put it on Fitz this year. So I want to make that clear. I think that you and I both agree with that it's not a totality thing when it comes to the development of this team. We're talking about present time. We're not talking
Yes.
about what Fitz has done for the future development of this team.
Oh,
So
of course.
that's why I'm, very Ruff and Fitz kind of thing here. If you're going to blame Ruff here with his system, it's we know this too, Adam. The Devils had the most comeback
And
wins.
extended.
Yes.
The belief is here in the system. The GM extended the coach to say, we believe in the system, and then we believe in the players we're bringing in, developing to serve that system.
But the system worked last year. Yeah, we had,
That's what I mean.
but listen, maybe you take 5 wins away because we had so many comeback wins last year, and I know that was not going to carry over to this year. I think we all knew that. But we were still more of a consistent team when it came to individual players playing to the caliber we knew they could play. And I think if you look at it now and we'll probably do this, we're going to give grades to each player.
Yeah.
Defensively, Dougie has been an F this year. Offensively, he's obviously going to
Well,
be an A.
spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Well, I got to throw it out there. Siegenthaler has been a D. It's look at the year Siegenthaler had
There's
last
another
year.
grade. I mean, why do we even bother preparing for a show down the line here, Danny, if we're just going to give away all the
Yeah,
grades now?
point being,
Yeah.
it's all about the individual players too. It's the fundamentals of hockey. It's the positioning. The system is the system. It's what they had last year. The Devils players know this system. You brought in new personnel, you brought in new players, but it wasn't like you completely ripped apart this team and got a completely new defense. There was
Right.
guys here that were here last year. Luke Hughes is stepping in, Ball's having a complete season. But we can't use the excuse constantly that it's the system. A lot of it's injuries. A lot of it's just the individual players need to play better. And I think that we need to take a step back and we need to realize that we're 10-9-1 with the amount of injuries that we just listed off is not the end of the world. Listen, a playoff position is only a certain amount of points away. I think it's 6 points. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure the exact number. But we need to just take a deep breath and realize that the Devils organization knows what's going on. They know there's an issue with goaltending. They know there's an issue with defense that we have to improve the defense. But we cannot put this on the head coach right now unless, like I said, the Devils miss the playoffs and then we want to readdress it at the end of the year.
And by and large, that's what it does feel like. The reaction is to maybe you do not like this system.
Sure.
Maybe that's what you have a problem with, and you feel like with the personnel, we'd be better suited with a different coach, a different system, a different style of play. That's kind of a different conversation, right? Right now, it's about who they have in house and what they can accomplish. So, coming up here in a second, we're going to take a little peek at that playoff percentage, as Danny just talked about how far away this team is. And then we'll briefly highlight the upcoming schedule. And we'll also set the table for you as to when we will, even though Danny wants to give it all away now, grade every player top to bottom on this roster a quarter of the way through the season. We'll do that in just 1 second after I tell you about our friends over at, oh, buddy, you guessed it, it's Raycon. Now, we've been doing our thing with Raycon, talking about their incredibly comfortable in-ear fit headphones, 32-hour battery life. It's fantastic. They've been known for their quality electronics, and they've also been known, quite frankly, for having what, tens of thousands of five-star reviews on all of their products. But recently, oh baby, recently they started getting into some other products, some home products. For example, you go ahead and you think about brushing your teeth, you think about washing your face. And when you do that, you never really question that the water is going to be clean and it's going to be quality. But in fact, Raycon has provided you with a fantastic faucet filter that goes ahead and eliminates, as we get the official stats up here on the table, they go ahead and eliminate chlorine, heavy metals, and you know that it's going to be a must have to ensure that you have that clean water running through your filters. Here's the other one, though. I haven't told you about this, guys, before. I have. I'm going to tell you again. Their five-star reviewed Magic 180 cable allows you to charge iOS devices, micro USB, and Type-C devices 8 times faster with 100-watt delivery power. Oh, baby. It's good stuff. And to get everybody in on kind of the holiday spirit and beating some of those shopping crazes, they're going to go ahead and give you up to 20% on everything on their website, and then all the way to 50% on select products as well. You beat the crowds for the holiday shopping. Save now, and trust me, you don't want to miss out on the Raycon early Black Friday sale. Hurry now over to buyraycon.com/
THPN.
to get 20 to 50% off site wide. That's buyraycon.com/THPN. My turn, not yours, to score up to 50% off on Raycon products. That's buyraycon.com/
THPN.
Oh, he got there in the end. They tried to throw him a curveball. Guys. From a percentage standpoint, Danny, what do you think the percentage is right now in this moment, 20 games in, for the Devils to make the playoffs?
72%.
Wow. 64.3. Danny a little bit more bullish. That's okay though. This is all based off of moneypuck.com. They're crunching the numbers. We like their odds there. But here's the best part about it. Only a 64% chance to make the playoffs, but a little over 33% to make the second round. So even though it may be hard for them to get there, they're certainly in line to maybe to make some noise when they do. Top of the list here, Dan. We talk about, here's some things that are going to upset you though. 92.3% for the Rangers. Ugh, that stings. Carolina, 86.2%. Not great. Even the Pittsburgh Penguins, 69.8%. So there are teams ahead of them in the pecking order right now. You just have to be able to stem the tide here a little bit. When we look at this schedule and we know that they're going to have, as we said, in Philly, we're going to be there for that one against the Flyers, then home for the Sharks, and then what will be a 4-game road trip, Vancouver, Seattle, Calgary, and Edmonton. That's going to really start to push us into that 25-game sample size, right? We'll be pushing toward a third of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel confident that you're going to see more Akira Schmid and that you're going to see more consistency from this roster that reminds us the injuries are really what messed us up early? It's now just about addressing this goaltending issue.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Akira. How do you not? I think you've seen enough of Vitek and being pulled, after the fourth goal right there. I think it's time for Akira in Philly. So let's hope so. But I think you're going to see him as much as you're going to see Vitek on this West Coast trip. I still think that Vitek's going to play.
Yeah.
I don't want Devils fans to think that, Akira is going to get the next 5 out of 6 games. I think it's going to be like 4 out of the next 6, maybe 3 out of the next 6 games he'll get. But it's still a consistent way to see Akira, which is what we want to do. And listen, maybe he gets hot. Maybe he plays 5 out of 6. That's the
Sure.
hope, right? But, these are winnable games coming up. Flyers have come down to earth. Sharks, we know what the Sharks are. Then you go out west, and that's going to be a tough road trip. No matter who you're playing, when you go out west like that, time change, the travel, the practice schedule, it's all very different for this team. So it's a really good test for this Devils team. But a lot of it, too, is you hope you get Timo back, right? Timo's skating on his own. I think he's a big absence for this team with the physicality aspect. We don't know what's going on with Dougie, but these are winnable games, Adam. And it comes down to really playing our game and defense, just shutting it down. And let's hope that Akira has some really good games.
And the goaltending is obviously going to be an ongoing conversation for this team. But to your point, man, it's, Thursday night at Philly, Friday night San Jose at home. I'd like to see Akira get both of those. The beauty of it is with a day off in between, I might even try to get him out there. With 3 days off in between before they go on the 5th. I would try to get him out there for Vancouver as well. Give him 3 straight and then give give Vitek the 7th against Seattle, and you have the opportunity to go back for Calgary and go to Akira, and then it's a back-to-back there, and you can give Vitek another chance as well. So to your point, 4 out of the next 6 or so, I'd like you to just see, hey, what does it look like when Akira gets rhythm? Because guess what? Here's the other little dirty secret. If Akira doesn't look so good, if it looks like a bigger sample size, returns some similar results to what we've seen from Vitek, then we have a different conversation. Then we start to look up the chain of command to Fitz, and we start to say, what is the perspective on this team? Overachieved last year. How do we feel this year? And what are we willing to commit and sacrifice in order to get to what we thought was going to be a deep playoff run? That's a large narrative here, and we're going to fold that right into our conversation a quarter of the way through the season. We're going to do that over the weekend here. So after the Philly game, after the Sharks game, you'll hear from us going into the weekend, breaking down our player grades. Danny already blew some of that information. That's okay. We're going to cover everybody's soup to nuts here. We'll also talk about the coaching, talk about the GM, and set some expectations going forward. Until then, though, you get over to YouTube for Devil's Puck Luck. You get over to Twitter for DPL, NJ Devils DPL. We'll do that for you. And then you also get over to @DannyTheFace and @Adam Armbrecht on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Instagram, and on Facebook, all at
Devil's Puck Luck.
Top of the head. Put it to bed, Danny.
Akira the Torpedo is going to take us to victory against the Flyers. Let's do this. It wasn't clean, but I got it out. It wasn't clean, but I got it out.
Yeah, be better.